Welcome to the Speed League podcast from Southern California. I'm Kelly Hansen. We're talking about fantasy supercross from Foxborough today and our fantasy matchup. You can play at speedleaguefantasy.com. It's totally free. It's a different game than really anything else that's out there. I'm joined, as always, by the man, the myth, and the legend, Ryan Berkman. What's up, Ryan?
How's it going, Kelly? How's it going, guys? Hey, real quick, if it's your first time listening, please think about subscribing. And if you're like someone who loves coming back and hearing all of our fantasy nonsense, please leave us a like, a comment. We really appreciate it. Every like and comment goes towards the bigger goal of us bringing fantasy supercross to every motherfucker on the planet. So thanks for joining in.
So we're doing this a little bit late this week. We were actually in Austin for MotoGP, which I know this is a Supercross podcast, but if you're not watching MotoGP, you're missing out. That's some of the best racing that's out there. That was a seriously good time.
Supercross is my number one racing sport, always has been, always will be, but that doesn't mean that I can't appreciate just the overall just competitive racing instinct, balls to the walls that MotoGP brings. And if anyone hasn't really experienced that, because I know that it's kind of like a different country race, to be honest. I mean, there's only one race in the US, so that just shows it right there. But that racing is phenomenal. It's the best of the best from the entire world, and I would highly recommend giving that a watch and a chance to be on your week to week viewing on your television, because it is super exciting.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of crossover too. I mean, they're both two-wheeled sports, obviously drastically different, but I mean, all those dudes train motocross. It's a lot of the same factory teams. And I mean, Villapoto was actually there over the weekend watching the races. So there's a ton of crossover between it. And yeah, I mean, it's really just, it's great racing. It's some of the best racing that's out there. It's just hyper competitive and 200 plus miles an hour. But yeah, we had a good time doing that. Walked around the whole track, saw from the tower, got some Terry Black's barbecue twice. Actually,
highly recommend.
Dude, highly recommend. Top tier beef ribs for sure. But I mean, following close behind, that sausage that they had there, the jalapeno cheddar sausage was top notch, and even the cream corn, probably the best cream corn I've ever had.
Kelly was weirdly obsessed with the cream corn. He couldn't stop talking about it the whole weekend, but it was good for sure.
It's better than being obsessed with the sausage. But okay, so going back to Supercross, so yeah, this race in Foxborough, the races themselves were actually not incredibly exciting. But I mean, if you see the results, it looks like it was an exciting race. I mean, the 450s, Webb taking the win, Jet Lawrence finishing fifth place. Kind of, seems like it would have been more electric, but it actually kind of wasn't. It was, sort of tale as old as time this year. Jet getting a bad start and, as fast as he is, not being able to work his way all the way through the pack. And that gives the championship tie now between Webb and Jet.
Yeah, and we did have two flag to flag leaders in the 250s and the 450s. And both races just whole shot to the checkered flag. But in the 450s, it still got a little bit exciting. I mean, with Roczen and Sexton battling, and Sexton making that last lap push, trying to get Webb, and then even seeing Jet trying to pass his way up and trying to get Anderson. It was decently exciting, but again, there was no crazy passes for the win or anything crazy like that. But yeah, the points are tied now going into next week. I didn't think in a million years we would be where we are today after just seeing how dominant Jet could be and him winning all those races. If you would have told me that Webb and Jet would be tied at this point, I would say, oh my gosh, Jet had to have got last in a few races because he crashed or maybe got hurt. But just Webb has been the king of consistency, always just right there to pick up the scraps or to just settle for a second or third and get the points that he needs to actually contend with Jet.
Yeah, and I mean, he's historically always been kind of, I'm going to be there every weekend and finish on the podium type of guy. And it's going to be really crazy if Webb ends up winning this championship off of just being, the veteran, consistent guy when for sure, Jet is the fastest guy that's out there, week to week. But I mean, we see that happen pretty often. I mean, Tomac's been that guy a lot before where he has the, most outright speed. I mean, even last year with Sexton, Sexton was the fastest guy most weeks, but it's not enough in Supercross. You have to be consistent.
Yeah, like I have been pleasantly surprised with how Jet has been riding this season in the sense of he like comes in as a rookie, never rode a like 450 Supercross before. And like he's been riding relatively smart and like relatively consistent. He's not been riding over his head or like pushing it way too hard. Um, but still, with that being said, Webb is riding more like a veteran. I mean, like props to Jet for like coming in here and not, fucking up and almost kind of doing what Deegan has, where he like has the speed, but he like does make these big mistakes or sometimes ride like an idiot, like a rookie should do. But like Jet's been riding awesome, but just Webb is I mean, we like say it all the time, consistent, smart, veteran rider, late race speed, super conditioned. And yeah, it's like coming down to the wire, and I can't wait to see what happens.
So you've got Webb on your fantasy team. You also have Roxon on your fantasy team. Both of them like finish on the podium. You have Hayden Deegan on your fantasy team who won this race. Your fantasy team is really, really coming together too little, too late.
That that was the exact text that I sent Whole Shot King, because like he's like mainly been my like number one competition in this league, fighting for that second place spot and the chance to like play in the championship game. And he like texted me, "Oh wow, your team's going off," and I literally said, "Too little, too late." And like really, I mean, I think that like having Webb and Roxon as your 1-2, I mean, granted, I think that I was fourth pick if I remember correctly, so I had back-to-back picks and I went Webb Roxon. And I really like I would have taken that any day of the week. I mean, really, some people kind of scoff at like getting fourth pick. Oh man, Jet's already taken and Sexton's already taken. But it does give you a chance to really stack that like 1-2 450 spot. Um, but it just
Mm-hmm.
didn't pan out for me this year. But like coincidentally, the like guy with first overall pick who like took Jet and like has, RJ and like all those like top guys, he's in last place and like absolutely floundering with like barely any wins. So it kind of does show that yes, Jet is the best, but you don't always want that first pick because you don't pick again for another 8 spots. So I mean, unfortunately, yeah, this season isn't going how I wanted it to. Um, Mainly because of my 250 West too is just riddled with like injuries. And I mean, my like 250 West, Marchbanks, Oldenburg, Bourdon. I mean, it's hard when it rolls around to the West to like win any matchups with that lineup.
Yeah. So you're down 2 wins. We have 4 races left in the season, but 3 races before the championship. I mean, basically, how the fantasy game works. If you haven't been playing, is we got 4 players in our league. Everyone plays against somebody else every single week, and the 2 teams with the best win loss record play together in the championship in the very last round of the season. So you're not mathematically eliminated yet, but being down 2 wins and then also close to 150 points, which is the tiebreaker. Yeah, puts you in a pretty tough spot to get out of this one. But you did beat me this last week. This is the first time anyone besides John, ironically, has beat me this entire season.
Yeah, and actually, luckily, I like do play Whole Shot King this week, who's like in second. So I'm gonna guess hypothetically, if I beat him this week and then maybe he like gets an injury or just maybe starts sucking ass a little bit, I do have a chance, even though it is not likely. But there's always a chance, unless your name is Scrubbing Triples. And he is 2-11 in the league, and it's not for lack of trying. I mean, I feel like this year he was trying to do like everything he could, but he lost Faulkner, he like lost some other people, so it's tough with those injuries, and you need to rely on the waiver wire to like fill out your top guy that you lost. I mean, it's hard to come back
Yeah,
from
but
that.
but that always happens in Supercross, and honestly, I would say this season has been less injury prone than most by a
True.
pretty significant margin. Yeah.
Y-
That being said, I just took a shot with
Yeah.
an injury right now by losing Plessinger. I mean, that's my number 2 450 guy. And that, I mean, honestly, that really sucks for Plessinger. I mean, he was having an awesome season, got his first 450 Supercross win. Everything was, going generally well for him. So that's a real bummer. I mean, I guess the hope is that he's going to make it back for the beginning of pro motocross, but like bummer on the shoulder injury for Plessinger.
Yeah, no, luckily for you, you are 10-3, and like you have the like championship locked in where you're a, surefire guy to be like playing in that. But like this really opened you up to like whoever plays against you, regardless if it's me or the whole shot king, that like we have a huge amount of, I mean, odds to like beat you now, because like losing Plessinger for like Colt Nichols is like who you ended up picking up in the spot of Plessinger. To go from Plessinger to Nichols, I mean, that's probably like a 15-point swing right there. So I mean, like just losing those 15 points as you're getting ready for the championship, I mean, that is a major hit for your fantasy team.
It sucks. And I mean, obviously anything could happen. You could still make the championship, but more likely than not, it's Whole Shot King. And this is really giving me a lot of uh, memories and vibes of last year's fantasy Supercross season, where I again dominated the whole regular season. We go to the championship, and then he cleans me out right at the end. So I really don't want that to happen again against the same guy.
So I'm looking at both your lineups here in like 450s, and I do just really want to analyze both these, and like maybe someone listening can like chime in the comments on who like they think has the better 450 team. But you have Sexton, Barsha as your top two, and I mean, this year Barsha is not doing as well as like years past. I mean, that like could be stacked, but it's not quite as stacked as it like has been. So I mean, Sexton definitely top 3 guy, but like Barsha, I mean, you like have him predicted 9th last race. That's probably where he's gonna finish. And then Whole Shot King top 2, Tomac Anderson. I would most likely take Tomac Anderson, but it's not as a far off as like you would think. I mean, then to round out his other two is Cooper and Cian Cerullo. Cian Cerullo is having an abysmal year, so abysmal that it caused him to retire. And like one of your guys says that he's like going to retire because he's not really feeling it, doesn't have that speed that he used to. That is never a good thing.
Yeah, totally. But I mean, yeah, I mean, Whole Shot King has 3 guys that for sure should be top 10. I have one. I mean, Sexton should be podium, but then Barsha hopefully should hang on for the top 10, and then McElrath Nichols, which I mean, those guys they're going to finish in the teens somewhere, and it's really just up to me to scrounge some points and really try to do good on prediction points for them. So that's going to be interesting. But then the other thing to consider here is the championship round is going to be an East-West showdown, which we have 2 of, and one is going to be next week, and we're going to talk about that some more. But I have a killer 250 West team. My 250 West team is Levi Kitchen, Jordan Smith, and Julian Beaumer. And then East, I'm rocking Hammaker, Schock, and Bennick. So that's pretty decent. I mean, Whole Shot King's no slouch with Hampshire, Shimoda, Vial, McAdoo, some of these guys in there. But I don't know. It's losing Plessinger hurt. That's for sure.
Your
It made me a lot more
West,
worried.
your West to have Kitchen, Smith. I mean, it is hard to get any better than that. I mean, you are as stacked as like stacked can be in the West. So like maybe that's your saving grace, and especially because it is an East-West showdown, say that Kitchen wins it and then Smith gets second or third, like all of Whole Shot King's guys could be like way back in the pack, and he scores very low in the like 250. So I mean, that could be your saving grace to win the $200 that the like winner gets
That's
in our
right.
league. So we'll see.
Um, okay, so if anybody wants to check out what we're doing in our league, we always post, our matchups up on our, social media pages, Facebook, Instagram. Follow us, Speed League Fantasy, and you can see the smart and or dumb moves that we're making because we have both. But okay, so going back to our 450 main from this last week, and I mean, speaking of Sexton, Sexton with a pretty good ride to finish second, but I couldn't help but think while he was riding that if this was last year, he would have been throwing down more. I mean, he took a long time to get around Roxon and then couldn't really make it happen at the end with Webb. So a good ride, but not a great ride from Chase Sexton.
He took way too long to pass Roxon. He was
Yeah.
clearly faster, and I think that it was a combination maybe of Sexton not wanting to go for it too hard and then crashing. Because I know that last year that was one of his problems, was maybe pushing it a little too hard and losing the front end. But I think that it also did have to do with he was trying to pass Roxon, who's like one of the most savvy veterans on the whole track and knows how to try to keep a guy behind him. So I think it did have a few things to do with that. But I think that if Sexton got past Roxon, 3 or 4 laps sooner, he like could have made a run for the win. And like really at this point in the championship, Sexton needs to be going for wins. I mean, especially, like, I don't know if like he knew exactly where Jet was, but like knowing that like Sexton and like you're in third in the championship, and the like person that is ahead of you is in first place in the race, and then the other guy is like way back in fifth, you need to give it everything you have, push as hard as you can, and you need to track down Webb and pass him. I think that was kind of like a mistake that he didn't push it a little harder.
And I mean, especially on top of that, because Sexton is 15 points down in the championship right now. He's still very, very much in this. And, to pass Webb for the win, you get an extra 3 points from going from second to first. So if you not only take first, but take it away from one of your main championship rivals, that's a 6-point swing against one of your main championship rivals. That's absolutely huge. So, yeah, I mean Sexton, he just needs that little more bite. It seems like the KTM hasn't quite given that to him this year, but I mean, yeah, I hope for my sake, my fantasy team's sake, he can figure it out. Okay, so we talked about the top three. Yeah, really good ride from Roxon to finish third. Anderson sneaking in for a fourth with kind of a quiet ride. Obviously, Jet Lawrence coming from way back. I mean, I don't even know where he started the first lap to end up fifth.
He was like 16th or something like that. He was way back there.
Yeah, and I mean, I was watching the times too. I mean, he was, I think once he's like got through traffic, most of the traffic, he was still running faster than the leaders, and that gap to the leaders was closing. Just signifying that he's the fastest guy on the track, but obviously not by enough to make up that kind of time with such a horrible start. Eli Tomac had an issue in the main, I know, and ended up sixth. Did you see his start in the heat race?
Yeah, he had one of those starts like Sexton had that like one, we think it was week 2 or 3, where he just rocketed off the start, and starts being so important. And he ended up winning the heat race. He looked great.
Yeah, I must have timed it off the sound of the pressurized thing going off before the gate drops or something. But that was one of those crazy starts where 8 feet off the line, he's already got a bike length and a half on every single person. So that was rad. I also wanted to call out Hunter Lawrence in 7th place. That was my deep pick from last week. Predicted 7th place. You're welcome, anyone who listened to me.
Wow, Kelly, you like sure have a good like memory on that. Didn't we have a cheeseburger bet for like something last week. I'll actually forget what it was.
That's 250s, and you did win that one. Is there
Oh,
anyone else you want to talk about in 450s?
not necessarily. I mean, really, no. I think that nothing too exciting happened, and we'll like wait for next week to have any bold statements or like predictions.
So if I remember right, the cheeseburger bet was I had Vial and you had McAdoo.
That's right.
And it was just whoever finished better. And I mean, honestly, this had meaning behind it because Vial was in a position to challenge to, I mean, not only beat McAdoo but like win the race and just slip behind. So weirdly, Vial, who has just been uber strong for the last while, just nothing besides didn't have the pace to keep up with McAdoo and Deegan this week.
Yeah, and I do want to like point this out real quick. Is like while I was watching the race, did it look to you that like Hayden Deegan actually got the whole shot and like he was first across the line? I
I
mean,
didn't see that specifically. I don't know.
because like this AMA official site that we get all of our, stats and like finishing positions and like how it's logged in the AMA, we gave it to Deegan, but it looked to me as if Vial got the whole shot, honestly.
Did they give it to Deegan on the live timing and scoring on TV?
No, they did not.
Did they give it to Vial?
Yes, they did.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. We'll have to look at that because I mean we do have a policy here that we'll go by the official standings, but Supercross apparently doesn't give a shit about being accurate about whole shots. And I lost a fantasy championship due to Cody Shock being credited with the whole shot in the 250 main event at the last race of last year. Go pull up that race, please. Cody Shock crossed the line in about 14th fucking place, and they credit him with a whole shot. And to this day, if you look at their results on the AMA website, it shows Cody Shock with a whole shot when Jeremy Martin got it. I lost a fantasy championship because of that. So if we see something that is clearly wrong, we will override their results. So I mean, maybe that's the case here.
And it wasn't clearly wrong. I mean, it was like super, super close. And like normally we are, a little more on top of that stuff to where like we would make that decision day of before we enter results. But again, we were balls deep in like Kelly's bachelor party in Austin. So we weren't,
Please don't say balls deep and bachelor party in the same sentence.
I was balls deep in Kelly, so I was a little busy. But yeah, so I mean, it was super, super close. So I could see how, if you have Tom Vial on your team and you lost by 4 points, you'd be a little pissed off at that. But we'll like review it again. And I know that it's a little late now. I mean, we do have the power to like change things, but I mean, I like think that almost it's a little late. And if that's what, official AMA results say, I mean, at this point, we almost have to leave it.
If it was close and up in the air, I'm inclined to go with AMA results. I don't want to override it unless this is blatantly, obviously wrong.
Yeah, it wasn't blatant.
But so yeah, I mean that being said, I mean Deegan with a great start, and then just he basically rode this thing out wire to wire, and kind of out of nowhere. McAdoo and Vial have been really cleaning house in the 250 East recently, and we'd begun to count out Deegan. And all of a sudden, just a great ride where the two main championship contenders were up there and there to contend and could not contend.
Yeah, exactly. And like really Deegan's only 13 points off of the like championship, and to get this win, I mean that like gives you confidence, gives you points, and maybe I mean he like has a chance to like win this thing, I mean one mistake from McAdoo or like Vial and like really I mean like Deegan can like be in like total control of this championship. So I mean we'll see next week because next week there's going to be a lot of fast 250 guys on the line. And like, this is when, if someone like Deegan can, get a whole shot and do very well, and then maybe like the opposite happens with like Vial and McAdoo, you can't, tip over in like turn one, or you can't get a bad start and then pass your way up through the pack like you can on a normal, just single coast race. So, I mean, starts are going to be huge coming up next week.
Yeah, so next week, the Nashville East-West Showdown, which is going to be really, really cool. And if you haven't played fantasy for an East-West Showdown before, everything's the same, except now you have 2 East Coast divisions. So it's usually a really high-scoring week. Because both of, instead of having 7 riders compete, now you're having 10 riders compete on your team. But at the same time, because they're all combined, you really have to be smart and change up your predictions, because someone who usually might be getting, 3rd or 5th place or something like that might be getting 7th or 10th place or something like that, because there are more riders, more chaos.
Yeah, and a prime example of this is the ultimate poster boy of a consistency, and that is Pierce Brown. Okay. There's been 6 races so far for the East. He's finished 5th, 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 4th, 4th, 4th. So, I mean, if you just click on his name on the like Speed League site and you see all those 5ths and all those 4ths, you may think, okay, this is easy, 4th or 5th. But in a East-West Showdown, you would probably predict someone like Pierce Brown. I mean, I'd say probably 7th or 8th, because there are, like, think about freaking guys like Kitchen and like Jordan Smith and all those guys that are faster than Pierce Brown. So I mean, yeah, definitely take that into consideration when you're setting your predictions next week.
Yeah, and it's hard to do because you'd almost be tempted to move Pierce Brown even further than that. Pierce Brown's finishing 4th or 5th, but then throw in the 250 West guys in there too. Is he going to beat Levi Kitchen? No. Jordan Smith, RJ Hampshire, even Joe Shimoda, someone like that? Probably not. But there's always going to be 1 or 2 of those guys that has some type of issue, a crash, a bad start, whatever it is, and finishes further back. So you kind of have to adjust up 1 or 2 positions for that. So this is a difficult game to play, but I mean, this is kind of where you earn your money in fantasy, is being really good at throwing in predictions in chaotic situations. So Pierce Brown, consistent guy. I think they're actually you call him the king of consistency. There may be a new king of consistency in the 250 class. In the 250 West, Julian Beaumer, 7th place in the last 4 straight rounds.
Yeah, so I mean, but a like guy like that, like we were talking about, 7th place on a single coast, so a double coast race. I mean,
Yeah.
14th place is like where like around you should be like predicting him. And there will be multiple guys on your team or on your opponent's team or like whatever it may be that don't even make the main. I mean, that's just like the fact of the matter. So it's always tough, when you have, 1 or maybe 2 guys even that like don't make the main. I mean, it's hard to claw back from that, but it's definitely exciting to watch.
Yeah.
And it's cool.
And we're guaranteed to actually have that happen, because there's everybody in the league has 6 total 250 riders on their team, 3 East and 3 West. And there's 4 players in the league. So that's, 4 times 6, that's 24 250 riders. And there's only 22 people in the main. So at minimum, 2 people from the league will not make the main, and probably more than that.
Yeah, and there's 2 of these East-West Showdowns, which is like kind of cool that they keep it like a little, rare. But like, I wish there was more of these. I mean, this to me is like so fun to have them like go head to head and see, okay, who's the king, who is going to get crowned as the number 1 250 rider. And that takes me to my podium lock of the week of who I think is the fastest 250 rider on like either coast. He would win any East-West Showdown, in my opinion, and that is Mr. Levi Kitchen. I mean, he has been on an absolute tear for the past few weeks. No one can even sniff him. And like, really, I think that he's going to come out and like prove his like dominance against all these people and just like run away with the lead. Lead and
Dice
win.
up your tomatoes.
That's right.
Fire up the grill. The chef is coming to Nashville. No, I think so too. And I was trying to think, it's difficult to compare sometimes because, obviously these guys aren't competing against each other. And, who's to say which is the faster coast? Even if one person might be dominating in one coast, maybe everybody in the other coast is way faster. But I don't really think that's the case here because Levi Kitchen is, trouncing the likes of Jordan Smith and RJ Hampshire. And those guys are no slouch.
Yeah, definitely. And if you look at just like overall points so far this year, championship points, I mean, granted, the West has had one more race than the East, but like Levi Kitchen has the most championship points and fantasy points out of any 250 rider. So, I mean, so it's not like a hot take to say that I think Levi Kitchen is the best and the fastest, but I mean, I am stoked to see if he could prove himself because I mean, really to like go out there and like win that race, that's almost just so much more than just winning a like race against your coast because you are literally the fastest and baddest dude out there and like almost I mean I think that if you
Yeah, it's
win
a
like East
statement.
West yeah and like you're should have a spot waiting for you on the 450s if you could freaking pull that out and like show that you're the fastest dude. I mean, like you should definitely have a spot in the 450s next year. Do you think Kitchen's going to move up next year? He should.
We've talked about it a little bit before. This is his first year of really stepping up to the next level. And also there's a question of, just where are the availabilities? I mean, Adam Cianciarulo is retiring right now. That could be an opportunity, but this is as dominant as Levi Kitchen is being. He just started dominating. So I don't know. It's up in the air. I'd love to see it, but at the same time, I wouldn't mind seeing him do another year in the 250s just to fully mature before he jumps in the big pond. But I like the pick for the 250 Showdown. I think he's the obvious choice. He's won 3 out of the last 4 races in his division. Just for the sake of changing it up, I'm picking for my podium pick in the 250 Showdown, Cameron McAdoo. McAdoo has been in the top 2 the last 5 races straight. I unless something goes drastically wrong, which it has for McAdoo in the past, he's kind of been a chaos monger, but he really seems to have figured that out this year and been able to rise above the chaos. I like McAdoo for a podium. If this was just a 250 East race, I'd probably predict him in second. I'm going to go third for the Showdown.
Yeah, that like makes perfect sense. And like we were talking about like consistency and like really, I mean, the last 5 races, 2, 2, 2, 1, 2. I mean, he's like consistent where you want to be consistent, and that's either in like first or second. So yeah, definitely has the speed. I mean, I don't know if he has the speed of Kitchen, but like definitely that would be my second choice too for a podium lock. So I agree with that 100%, Kelly.
So here's a question for you. You have Hayden Deegan on your team coming off a dominant win going into the Showdown. Where do you predict Hayden Deegan?
I like wish that I could say, oh man, Deegan's definitely going to be on the podium or he's going to be battling with the top guys. I would not predict him on the podium, honestly. I mean, I know that he just came off of a sick flag to flag win. But like consistency hasn't been his like strong suit this year. I'm probably gonna either predict him 4th or 5th, depending on what I see in like qualifying. But like if I had to say right now, I would probably pick him one spot off the podium in 4th place.
Okay, yeah, I was probably going to say 5th, but right in that range. And I mean, based on what we saw this week, I mean, he could just bust it out and win this whole thing. You never know. But if you're being realistic with your predictions, this is probably the range to stay in is 4 or 5. Okay, so going down to some a little bit deeper picks, which we both want to do in the 250s this week, just because it's harder to do predictions for showdowns, and we want to kind of give some guidance. I'm picking as my deeper pick someone who normally wouldn't be a deep pick, but is going to be deeper this time, is Cody Schock. So Cody Schock sitting in fifth in fantasy points in the 250 West, sort of ranging between fifth and eighth over the last 5 races. So normally I would have him predicted around a sixth. For this one, I'm going to go 11th for Schock.
Yeah, he's been riding really, really well. And I saw that he just signed a 3-year deal with this team. So they're super stoked of what they've seen and really having that confidence boost, going forward. Knowing that you're wanted and you could feel wanted and you could just go out and ride your race. I think that he's actually going to slowly improve. And I like that deeper pick because I think that his, he's definitely trending upwards for sure.
Yeah, I was actually a little bit bummed to see Schock sign that. That's awesome, and Club MX is a great team, but he's been putting up strong enough results this year. I was almost hoping he was going to get some looks from a factory team.
Yeah, that thought did cross my mind. Almost like they were talking about it as if he signed with factory Yamaha or something crazy like that. But it is just more of a satellite team. But still, I don't know the ins and outs of the contract or maybe what they're paying him. But still, just to have, that constant team working with you and knowing they could build for the future. That says a lot. So I could see him not trying to get happier than happy. That's a saying that I always think about when I'm trying to make life decisions is don't try to get happier than happy, because a lot of times you just end up shooting yourself in the foot.
Okay. All right. Who you got for your deep pick?
So my deep pick is someone that we've had as a deep pick a few times before, but now actually I feel like we kind of know exactly what he is, because this guy struggled at the beginning of the year to really get his true identity of where he was going to finish in his style for this year. But my deep pick is Malcolm Stewart. He has had a let's see, 7 races in a row where he's kept it on 2 wheels. He's finishing relatively consistent, and he's right around that 7 to 10th place finish. And I think that he's just gonna stick right there, finish 8th place next week in Nashville. And right now he's 11th in points because he's kind of stumbled in the first start of the season. But now he is someone you could definitely count on. You're actually stoked to have him on your team, knowing he's going to consistently get those top 10s. So mine is Malcolm Stewart, predicted 8th place next week.
Okay. I would take the over on 8th place for Malcolm Stewart. I'm looking at his recent results, 10, 9, 11, 7, 10. So, yeah, you say the range between 7 and 11, but 7 was definitely a peak for him, and he's more been around the 9th through 11th range. So, I'd probably stick him 9th or 10th if it was me, but I like your optimism for Mookie.
If you go back even a few more races, he finished 8th, 9th, 7th, 10th, 9th. He's been right around that spot the whole time. So I think that he's just going to continue to be right around there, and he's an easy guy to predict around that around those spots for sure.
Yeah. All right, well, let's wrap it up. Just a few days until the East-West Showdown in Nashville. Make sure to set your lineups. We're coming down to the wire on making it into your championship. So just remember, you got to be in the top 2 of win-loss ratio, your win-loss record in order to be in the championship, or else you're going to the consolation matchup. And then once you're in that championship, anything goes. It doesn't matter how many more wins you have than second place. Whoever wins that championship takes home the entire fantasy league. And a lot of us have, struggled and, had one person that was dominating our league and barely squeezed by into the championship and still won as the underdog. It happens way more often than you would think.
It's very true. So we wish everyone the best of luck, and we will see you guys next week.
Peace.